Hey guys, we are live for round 2. Now this is the second installation of the book series that we're still trying to name here. So if you have any good names for this, by all means submit them, drop them into the page for me. I'm going to be kicking around a lot of ideas as we build this thing out. The long and the short is I'm helping you get through all of these different books, all right, and making it easy for you to implement them. All right, now they say the average CEO reads a book a week. Most of us don't have that much time, especially don't have that much time now. So my goal is to get you through one book per month. Break this down into 4 different sections, 4 main points, and then give you the action items that you can take and start implementing today. You know, there is there is nothing you can get out of these books if you're not implementing them. All right, so I want to give you the action items, give you 4 points that you can take out of each one of these sections that you can start using today for your own business. Even if you only choose one of them, it's something that's going to help you build your business, build your marketing, build your stance out there in your market, and build where you can start to expand. All right, so last week we started with Contagious, one of my favorite books by Jonah Berger. All right, and I'm going to make sure, make sure we are indeed going live here. And slowly but surely. All right, so we broke down Jonah Berger and we looked at triggers yesterday. Triggers were the big thing that we were trying to get our head around, to make sure that we understood what makes people share information about products, what makes people think, more importantly, think about products, staying top of the mind, tip of the tongue. And the big one that I looked at, or that we looked at yesterday, or last week, pardon me, was whether or not Cheerios, you know, an unsexy product, could actually outperform something like Disneyland. All right, and by the numbers, by the research numbers, Cheerios consistently outperforms a much sexier product like Disneyland because it has so many more triggers. It's easy to stay on the top of the mind for something like that. So we looked at how you can start to implement those as well. All right, so the big thing we're going to be looking at today is practical value. So again, we're looking at Jonah Berger's book, Contagious. You can find this Amazon for a couple bucks. You know, highly recommend you pick it up because it's great for getting into the mindset of your user and figuring out how you can relate to them outside of just throwing sales at them, throwing facts and figures and the other junk. Find a way to actually stick in their mind and create some level of value. All right, so the big thing, and I'm going to start off with one of the most practical things you can instill within your brand. All right, I don't care what it is that you're selling, the rule of 100 applies to your brand. The rule of 100 states that whether or not the original price is higher or lower than $100, there's a certain way that you should approach how you display that. All right, so I want you to think back to how people make sales, how people display a sale. They write it, save $100 or save 10%. All right, the big question is whether I should go with the dollar value or the percentage value. All right, and the basic theory here is that if your price tag is over $100, you need to use the percentage. Or pardon me, if it's over $100, you need to use the actual number. All right, so if your price is $1,000, the discount you give should be $100, not 10%. On the other side, if you sell low-ticket products, if your price is $25, your discount should be 20%, not $5. All right, so the big thing here is we're trying to find the higher number. The rule of 100 gives us the higher number that we can use in our marketing. So if you're telling people, if you're printing it on magazines or ads or wherever, make sure you use this rule of 100 so that you display the higher, you display the actual higher number that people are going to receive. All right, so that's the big one we're going to look at, the rule of 100, and you can use that just about anywhere. Like I said, it works just the same for radio ads as it does for print ads. All right, so the big thing, like I said, we're looking at practical value today, and I've got my notes right here in front of me. And I apologize if the volume is a little bit light. I don't have my little microphone today. All right, so we're going to be seeing how this goes. All right, but the big one we're going to look at, like I said, is practical value. Making sure that your product is something that is not just useful, all right, because clearly it is. Your product is here because it provides value to some users, but you have to find a way to actually tap into that knowledge, tap into that concept with them. And you can do a couple specific things to do that. We're going to look at prospect theory. Now, a lot of what you're going to find in this book has to do with studies that have been done on consumers. All right, so they'll run massive studies to see which one, A/B test, just to see what concept actually works the best. And one they found in here, they call it prospect theory, is how people evaluate a cost. All right, and how good a specific deal is. All right, so prospect theory starts with what people expect to pay. what people expect that they should pay, whether or not you have to tell them what that is, like in infomercials, or it's something that they're completely familiar with and they can show what they have it in their head what they should be paying for such a product. All right. So the goal is that you want to be able to establish a reference point. So if people don't know your product, you have to be able to establish that reference point, and then you have to be able to show some value on top of that. All right, so how good a deal is, how important it is to people depends on how much you can actually bring, how much value you can bring to them. So think back, I'm going to give you an example from my student housing days. All right, and one of the tried and true secrets that we had, not necessarily secret now, is a thing called faux fees. Now, everybody who's rented an apartment knows you've got your deposit, you've got your pet fees, you've got your application fee, you've got all these other fees on top of that. So most of us expect that. Same with buying a car. Most of us expect that we've got the price tag and then we have all these markups in there. Now, what we would manage to do in the housing industry is we would build in these fees to the actual price. All right, so instead of $100 application fee, all right, we would add that monthly to the cost of the lease itself. All right, so it would add $5 to the cost of the lease, but then again, we could also go say, no application fee, no pet deposit, none of these other things. We'd call them faux fees because they didn't exist anymore for us, but they did exist for our competitors. They existed in the market and they were in the reference point of the mind of the users. So when they came to rent an apartment, they expected for somebody to tell them, okay, there's going to be fees, there's going to be this, there's going to be that. They expected all of this to happen. And then it didn't. We had the opportunity to advertise that we provided some level of value over our competitors, even though it was still built into the cost. So A, it's not technically a lie. We're not lying to them saying it's not there, all right, but to have the ability to provide extra value to the users based on what they expected to pay. So that reference point is important for you. And we're going to come back to that when I give the action items here, but keep in mind what people automatically, the common assumptions about your brand, your product, your service. What do they expect to have to pay for? All right, and how can you get them away from that? How can you differentiate yourself in that capacity? All right, think about infomercials. One of my favorite things, for any insomniac out there, my dad's an insomniac, I'm a bit of an insomniac, always watched infomercials. They're fascinating things to watch, and most of the time they're hysterical too. All right, but one thing you'll always see, think back to the knife commercials. All right, we got a guy that takes a knife, a kitchen knife, cuts through a penny, cuts through a tin can, cuts through everything, and then slices a tomato beautifully. All right, and they'll tell you, they'll preface you, they give you the reference point. They tell you, you would expect to pay $200 for a knife set like this. All right, you might expect to pay $250 for a knife set like this. All right, but we're going to give it to you for this price. All right, and they start to stack that offer. All right, so they give you a reference point, and then they build value on top of that. All right, so they tell you $250 and it sticks in your head. And then all of a sudden, once they tell you everything that you're going to get, you get the knife, you get the case, you get all these different things, they keep adding value, then they tell you the price of $39.95. So your mind automatically went from $250 for a knife, one knife, to everything that you're going to get on this side for $39.95. So your mind automatically begins to say, that's a hell of a deal. I know nothing about knives. I could not tell you the first thing. I know they're sharp, they're painful, and when dropped, they'll go through your shoe. That's what I know about knives. Now I have a reference point for a price, and they've taken me all the way across the board to the value they can provide for me. So even if your users don't necessarily have a specific reference point, they don't have a predisposition to your product, you can preface them, you can pre-qualify that concept. All right, so give them that reference point if they don't have that. All right, one of the examples, one of my favorite examples from here, I spent the better part of 4 months searching for the best outdoor grill I could find. All right, and I finally found one, and it's my baby, and I haven't used it in like 6 months. It's driving me nuts. All right, but they use Weber grills in here as a good example, and how Weber would test different products in different markets, even if they were closed markets. All right, so Weber, on the other hand, and I'm going to go back to those faux fees. Weber, on the other hand, ran a sale in one store. All right, and they put the original listed price of $350, and they marked it down $100. On the other store, they listed the original price as $250 and marked it down $15. Same store, same market, same place, or same city. All right, different prices. The one with the lower discount was actually the lowest price. You could get it for $245 or $235. On the other side, they displayed a marked up price at $350 and brought it down to $250. All right, so I can either get it for 375 or 375 over here, what did I say? 235 over here or 250 over here. But the one that actually came down to 250, so it was shown to be marked up to $350, sold more. People saw this as a discount because they had Weber took the opportunity and the store took the opportunity to preface that price, to give them a reference point that they otherwise wouldn't have. Whereas compared to, if they did compare to that other store, they saw it was a much smaller discount, a much smaller, a worse deal in their mind. And again, that goes back to the psychology of it, because that's what we're trying to key off of. We don't have to necessarily adhere to the realm of reality here. You have to be in the realm of these people's minds. All right, think back to when McDonald's tried once their famous quarter pounder. And I'm going to do this real quick for you. So I want to show you what McDonald's found. So I'm going to put this up here. McDonald's initially has the quarter pounder, their famous quarter pounder. They wanted to provide more value for an extra like 30 cents. All right, and so they came up with a third of a pounder for an extra 30 cents more. I think it was 30 cents, might have been 25. Something nominal. All right, it shouldn't bother you to part with an extra quarter. All right, but people saw this. They went from a 4 to a 3, and regardless of the math, people got upset and they said, no, you're downsizing my burger for a higher price tag. I want my quarter pounder back, even though the third of the pound burger is more meat on it, more burger for your value, more bang for your buck. People lost their minds. Now maybe that just speaks to the clientele at McDonald's. It's entirely possible, but that really speaks to the psychology behind the concept here of giving people their reference point and making sure you adhere to that reference point. Even if you are providing them more value, sometimes you're going to have to go for the lowest common denominator here and make sure they understand that it's actually there. All right, so we looked at faux fees, how infomercials give people reference points that they might not have, and the rule of 100, how that can affect Weber grill sales, how that can actually affect what your users see when you tell them about the value of a deal. And by all means, test this out. If you want to see the rule of 100 in action, A/B test your next advertising campaign out there. Give people a $10 discount versus a 10% discount. See the percentage versus the actual price. See which one actually connects better with the users, even though they literally mean the exact same thing. All right, so test that out. So the other part we're going to look at two different things here. I'm going to try and get this in. The other part is segmenting. All right, segmenting your audience means that we understand what matters most to different people in our audience. And as a diligent marketer, which clearly you are, all right, I want you to make sure that you are actually doing this, segmenting out your audience and sending them only the most useful stuff. Now, most of the time this comes down to email, but this is where small businesses and early stage startups tend to miss out on a lot of potential sales because the concept is that if I go after everybody, if I have a larger audience, if I go after everybody, I'm going to get a much better result. Generally, that's not the case. More times than not, what you're going to find is that you've overextended. You've gone for mass appeal, you paid for all this reach, and you're not going to get the conversion rate that you wanted. You're not going to get the amount of people coming in based on the amount of reach that you've got. All right, so if you segment your audience more times than not, what you're going to find is you pay less to do it since you're going after a smaller audience, and you get a higher conversion rate. So you'll actually bring more in just on the fact that you targeted a smaller audience. All right, and this works equally well for marketing your products because this helps create a more shareable moment. Sharing and caring has to do with connecting to people about a product. All right, and we talked about triggers earlier, being on top of the mind, tip of the tongue for somebody about your product or about your service, your brand, whatever it is. Cheerios, every morning people wake up, all right, and they think cereal and they automatically go to Cheerios. All right, and that's why Cheerios consistently outperforms Disneyland, because people don't wake up thinking about Disneyland. They have to be specifically triggered for it, whereas Cheerios has the environment for it. All right, so think about that in concept of what you send to your users. Think about, I want to look at, I think there's one or two decent Ethiopian restaurants in Austin, Texas. One or two. All right, but then again, that's not something, I rarely walk around thinking, damn, I'd love some Ethiopian food. All right, I think more along the lines of pizza and donuts, and I eat like a pregnant woman, but that's fine. That's just where my head's at. All right, that's why people that know how to market to me, they know how to throw that food at me at the right times. All right, so think about segmenting your audience, all right, and convincing them to share means that you understand what you need to send them. All right, so if they've got friends that love Ethiopian food, if you can send that content to that specific market, that specific segment, you stand a much better chance of them thinking to themselves, okay, this is Ethiopian food. I've got a couple friends that love Ethiopian food. I'm going to send this to them as well. It inspires more sharing because it's such a targeted offer. All right, so if you're not segmenting your audience now, start doing so. Get an understanding of why they opted into your email list. Take into account, in your targeting, even if you're doing cold traffic targeting to people who don't know your brand, make sure you target specifically on what matters the most to them. All right, and this is where you start to get into the concept of earning media. All right, because people share what they most care about, what they find most valuable. All right, so target small. For those of you who have paid any attention to sniper movies, or what is it, Mel Gibson's The Patriot, if you remember that, I think that's where that phrase tended to pick up or start to trend, was aim small, miss small. All right, and that's your concept with marketing. Target a smaller group, all right, on a specific concept, something that connects directly to them, and you'll stand a much better chance of A, getting a better return, but B, getting a lot of more earned media, a lot more shares, a lot more people sharing your content out there. So those are the big ones we're going to look at. We looked at the rule of 100. All right, so structure your price, or structure your discounts and your sales figures based on the percentage of the dollar amount, and that should be from the reference point itself, from the original price itself. Like the prospect theory, all right, how people evaluate the cost, how people evaluate the how they structure a deal in their head, whether or not they determine if it's a good deal or a bad deal. How they evaluate that has to do with how you present it. All right, so if they don't have a reference point, give them that reference point. If they already do have a reference point, you need to find a way to get around that. So think back to the faux fees concept. All right, we don't have an application fee. We've got no move-in fees. We've got no pet fees. It might already be built in the cost, but you're not paying it on the extra fee side. All right, so even just changing up how you display that concept can help people connect to your brand or your service better and differentiate you from your audience, from your competitors as well. All right, so here's your action items. This is what I want you to concentrate on, and I'm going to put these in the comments below. If there was anything you missed in here, by all means, hit the comments below. This is an open conversation. I don't want to keep this running. All right, so your 4 action items here. This is what you can start to implement today for your business based on the concepts of practical value. All right, so we're going to start with identifying expectations. What additional fees or expenses do people expect to pay with your product or service? All right, think about what they expect to pay, what they expect to get out of it, how much time they expect to spend on it, any level of expectation around your market, around your product, your service, your brand. All right, what do they expect to get out of it, and how can you change that concept? How can you display value in those? 2, identify your segments. All right, get an understanding of the different types of people that buy your product or service. Are they men? Are they women? Are they old? Are they young? Are they teens? Who buys from you and why? This goes back, and so identifying your segments goes back into building customer personas. And these next 2 are going to build with that as well. So identifying the value, this goes into understanding why people buy your product. All right, so if men and women buy your product equally, why do they buy that product? All right, because we use it for entirely different things. All right, I've got a pair of utility gloves that I keep in the garage. I keep it from smashing my fingers when I'm using hammers, from doing yard work, things like that. All right, it keeps my hands from being destroyed. My girlfriend, on the other hand, uses them for gardening, for small stuff, for flowering, just so her hands don't get dirty. Same product, different uses. So understand the value that goes into your product or your service for those specific segments. All right, and 4, this is my favorite one, and again, this one's another one that comes out of this book, all right, is asking why. So remove the clutter around those concepts. What I want you to do is ask why 3 times for each of these concepts. All right, so why do people buy these gloves? Okay, they keep me from smashing my hands. Why is smashing my hands more important? Well, I need my hands so that I can work. I work on the computer all day when I'm not outside. All right, and ask why 3 different times, and that'll help you get rid of any assumptions you got around a concept, and really start to figure out why, the heart of the matter, why people use a specific product. All right, so that was our 4. Identifying expectations, identify your segments, identify the value, and remove the clutter. All right, those are going to be your big four that I want you to concentrate on. Again, that is practical value out of Jonah Berger's Contagious. And we've got 2 more weeks we're going to spend on this book itself. We're going to be breaking down a couple more concepts. Now, this segment is going to be every Wednesday at 1:30. I'm going to go live. We're going to break down just one piece of this book. All right, and my goal, like I said, is to get you closer to that CEO level. All right, we're not going to be covering a book a week and trying to get everything crammed into there. We're going to do a book a month. That way you've got the time to actually let this sink in and implement this and start to see some changes going on.